It is late. The room is quiet, but your mind is deafening. You are staring at a screen, reading an old message, replaying a final conversation that ended months, maybe years ago. You know exactly what they said. You know exactly how it felt, but you keep running the simulation over and over, hoping for a different outcome. You tell yourself you just need one thing: closure, an explanation, an apology, a conversation that finally makes it all make sense. You tell yourself that if they would just give you that, you could finally move on. You could finally sleep. But the text never comes, the call never happens, and you are left suspended in a permanent state of waiting. You are a hostage. Let us look at what is actually happening. You think your inability to let go is a sign of your deep capacity to love. You think it means you care more than they did. It is a comforting lie, but it is still a lie. The pain you are feeling right now is not love. It is a psychological trap. In the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik made a fascinating observation. She noticed that waiters in crowded cafes could remember complex, unpaid orders with perfect clarity. But the second the bill was paid, the memory vanished. The brain holds on to unfinished tasks. It loops them. It forces them to the front of your consciousness until they are resolved. This is the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain is treating this person, this betrayal, this sudden departure as an unpaid bill, an open loop, a puzzle missing its final piece. But it gets worse, because this is not just a cognitive glitch, it is a deeply rooted defense mechanism of the human ego. Look closer. Why do you actually want closure? Be honest with yourself. You do not just want an explanation. You want them to admit they were wrong. You want them to witness your pain. You want them to validate the suffering they caused. You believe that if they finally say the words, the wound will magically close. You are waiting for the poisoner to hand you the antidote. Imagine your life as a house. Someone came inside, walked through your rooms, and then left abruptly. But instead of locking the door behind them, you followed them to the threshold. And now you are standing outside in the freezing rain. You are knocking on a door that they have locked from the inside. You are begging to be let back in, just so you can ask them why they kicked you out. You are voluntarily shivering in the dark, refusing to walk away until they open the door and explain themselves. This is what waiting for closure actually is. It is the ultimate surrender of your power. You are handing the pen to someone who already ruined the chapter and begging them to write a better ending. You are allowing someone who did not respect you enough to stay to control whether or not you are allowed to move forward. You think you are seeking peace. You are not. You are seeking permission. Permission to heal. Permission to breathe. Permission to live your life again. But here is what nobody tells you. The explanation you are waiting for does not exist. Even if they answered the phone, even if they sat across from you right now, the words they would say would not satisfy you. Because the truth is almost always banal. They were cowardly. They were selfish. They simply did not care enough to do the right thing. There is no profound, hidden reason that will make the betrayal feel acceptable. There is no magical combination of syllables that will undo the damage. When you demand closure from the person who broke you, you are asking a blind person to describe the sunset. They cannot give you what they do not possess. And yet you keep knocking. You keep waiting. You keep checking your phone, practicing the conversation in the shower, writing letters in your head that you will never send. You are sacrificing your present moment, your vitality, your very life force on the altar of a ghost. Consider the sheer arrogance of your own ego in this process. You believe the universe owes you a clean ending. You watch movies where every conflict resolves in the final act, where the villain apologizes, where the misunderstood hero is finally vindicated. But the natural world does not work this way. The storm does not apologize to the tree it uproots. The fire does not explain itself to the forest. They simply act according to their nature. The people who hurt you were acting according to their nature. Their sudden exit, their cruelty, their silence. That was not a mistake requiring clarification. That was the clarification. That was the answer. You are staring at the truth, refusing to accept it because it does not fit the narrative you constructed in your head. You are suffering because you are arguing with reality. You are demanding that the past be different than it was, and in doing so, you are committing a terrible crime against yourself. You are keeping the wound open. You are dragging a corpse behind you, complaining about the smell, and refusing to cut the rope. This is the true cost of the myth of closure. It is not just a harmless desire for understanding, it is an active mechanism of self-sabotage. Every day you wait for an apology, you are agreeing to remain a victim. Every time you check their social media, you are handing them the keys to your nervous system. You are practicing weakness. You are letting your inner fortress be governed by an invader who has already abandoned the territory. The shift happens here. You must realize that closure is a modern invention, a concept fabricated by a culture that cannot tolerate discomfort, a culture that believes every pain must have a neat, logical resolution. But the wisest minds in human history knew better. They knew that true freedom requires something far more brutal than an apology. It is the 1st century in Rome. A small, frail man sits on a stone floor. He is a slave. His owner is a man named Epictetus, a cruel and capricious master. In a moment of senseless cruelty, perhaps out of sheer boredom, the master takes the slave's leg and begins to twist it. The slave does not scream. He does not beg. He simply looks at his master and calmly says, "If you keep twisting, you will break my leg." The master, enraged by this quiet defiance, twists harder. The bone snaps with a sickening crack. The slave, now permanently crippled, looks down at his ruined leg. Then he looks up at his master. "I told you it would break." That slave was Epictetus. He would go on to win his freedom, become a teacher, and emerge as one of the most powerful minds in Stoic philosophy. Now, ask yourself a question. Did Epictetus receive an apology? Did his master sit him down and explain the psychological reasons behind his cruelty? Did Epictetus get closure? No. The man who shattered his leg offered nothing but silence and continued tyranny. If Epictetus had waited for closure, he would have died a bitter, broken slave on a dirt floor. He would have spent his entire life asking why. Instead, he forged a philosophy that would survive empires. He realized something that you must realize right now. Closure is not a gift someone hands you. It is a decision you execute. You are currently violating the most sacred rule of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. You are taking your healing, your peace, your very sanity, and placing it in the hands of the person who broke you. You have made them the architect of your recovery. It is a strategic disaster. You are outsourcing your inner fortress to the enemy. And you know it. Deep down, you know this is true. You know that even if they sent the message today, it would not be enough. If they said they were sorry, your mind would immediately demand to know why they did it in the first place. If they explained why, your mind would demand to know how they could be so heartless. The hunger of the wounded ego is a bottomless pit. It cannot be filled by the words of another human being. It can only be starved into submission. Let that sink in. The explanation you seek is a mirage. We suffer from a psychological condition that the ancients warned us about. We are terrified of finality. We would rather live in the agonizing purgatory of maybe than face the terrifying permanence of never. Waiting for closure is a sophisticated form of denial. It is how your mind protects you from the absolute, crushing reality of grief. If you are still waiting for an answer, the story is not over. And if the story is not over, you do not have to mourn its ending. You are weaponizing hope against yourself. Hope is a beautiful thing when applied to the future. But hope applied to the past is a poison. It robs you of the present moment. It keeps you chained to a ghost. Remember the locked door. You are still standing in the freezing rain. You are shivering, knocking, pleading for them to turn the handle. You think the door is the problem. You think the person on the other side is the obstacle holding you back from your life. Look closer. The door is not the obstacle. Your refusal to turn your back to it is the obstacle. The door is just a piece of wood. It is your own hand, raised to knock again, that is keeping you trapped in the storm. We call this the phantom limb syndrome of the soul. When a warrior loses an arm in battle, the brain takes time to map the new reality. For months, the soldier might feel an itch in fingers that no longer exist. They might reach for a cup with a hand that is buried in the dirt. The brain generates pain in a void. Your mind is doing the exact same thing. The relationship is gone. The friendship is dead. The job is over. The person you thought you knew has been erased from reality, but your brain is still generating a phantom connection. You are feeling the pain of a severed attachment, and you are scratching at empty air. 2,000 years ago, someone understood this perfectly. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." You are suffering in imagination. You are fighting a war that ended months ago, on a battlefield that is completely empty. The ancients had a word for the cure. They called it Amor Fati, a love of fate. Not tolerance, not grudging acceptance. Love. It means looking at the broken leg, looking at the silent phone, looking at the locked door, and saying, "This is my reality, and I will not argue with it. I will use it." But this is where most people quit. Don't. You want to know the secret to taking your power back? You want to know how to stop waiting for an apology you will never receive? You must realize that their silence is the closure. Their absence is the apology. The disrespect was the explanation. They told you everything you needed to know, not with their words, but with their departure. When someone walks out of your life without the basic human decency of an explanation, they have given you the greatest gift possible. They have revealed their character. Why are you demanding an explanation from someone whose character is so deeply flawed? Why do you value the words of a coward? This is the medicine, and it tastes bitter. You must drink it anyway. You must take the pen out of their hand. You must realize that you are the sovereign of your own mind. No one is coming to untangle the knot for you. No one is coming to wipe the slate clean. If you want peace, you are going to have to forge it yourself out of the scrap metal of this betrayal. To stop waiting, you must perform an act of psychological violence against your own hope. You must sever the cord. The Stoic does not wait for the storm to pass. He builds a fire. The sovereign does not wait for a traitor to apologize. He exiles them from the kingdom of his mind. You must look at the empty space they left behind and declare it sacred ground. You cannot let them occupy your thoughts rent-free while they are out living their life, completely unbothered by the damage they caused. Every minute you spend analyzing their motives is a minute you have stolen from your own future and handed to your enemy. Stop practicing death while you are still alive. Now, pay attention. This is the part that matters. You must stop asking for a final chapter from a book that has already been burned. There is a dark truth hidden in your relentless desire for closure, a truth you are actively avoiding. A part of you, deeply embedded in your shadow, actually enjoys the waiting, because as long as you are waiting for them to apologize, your life is paused. You have an excuse for your stagnation. You get to play the tragic, wounded protagonist in a story of unfair betrayal. If you finally give yourself closure tonight, it means tomorrow morning you have to wake up and take absolute responsibility for your own life. And that is terrifying. It is much easier to blame your inability to move forward on someone else's silence. It is easier to be a victim than to be a sovereign. But you are running out of time. The clock is ticking. The hourglass is emptying while you stand paralyzed over a grave that has already been filled. You must systematically destroy the illusion that you need them to release you. You are going to use the very pain they caused to shatter the chains they left behind. Did they leave without a word? Good. They spared you another lie. Did they refuse to take accountability? Good. You now know exactly the caliber of person you are dealing with. Did they walk away when you needed them most? Good. They cleared the space for you to discover your own absolute self-reliance. Did they deny you the ending you felt you deserved? Good. Now you get to write an ending that makes you a conqueror, not a casualty. The dominoes are falling. You're beginning to see the trap for exactly what it is. Closure is a myth designed by the weak to avoid the heavy lifting of moving on. The strong do not wait for an apology to begin their healing. They look at the wreckage, they accept the damage, and they start rebuilding the fortress. How do you actually close the loop? You do it by stripping them of their perceived value. You have built a shrine to a ghost. You have elevated them to the position of a supreme judge, sitting on a high bench, holding the gavel of your self-worth. Drag them down from that bench. They are not a judge. They are just a flawed, cowardly human being who made a choice. Their choice is their burden. Your reaction is your weapon. The Stoic does not simply endure a wound. He weaponizes it. Take the disrespect. Take the unanswered questions. Take the cold, agonizing silence. Throw it all into the furnace. Let it burn. Let the anger, the disappointment, and the absolute absurdity of their behavior serve as the fuel that forges a harder, sharper version of yourself. You're not a helpless spectator sitting in the gallery of your own life, waiting for the actors to return to the stage. You are the architect. You take the pen out of their hand. The chapter ends because you turn the page, not because they finished writing. Let us return to the door. You are standing in the freezing rain. The wind is howling. Your hand is raised, knuckles bruised and bleeding, ready to strike the heavy wood one more time. You are waiting for the click of the lock. You are waiting for the warmth of the hall. But tonight, something shifts. You look at the heavy oak. You look at the iron hinges. You realize that the person on the other side is not a savior holding the key to your peace. They are just a coward, hiding in the dark, incapable of facing what they broke. And for the first time in months, you do not knock. You slowly lower your hand. You let the rain wash the dirt from your skin. You take a deep breath of the cold air, and you turn your back to the door. You do not look over your shoulder. You look out at the vast, open landscape before you. The storm is beginning to break. The horizon is entirely yours. You are no longer waiting. You take a step forward. Tonight, when you lie in bed, and the house is quiet, and the whisper starts, and the phantom limb begins to ache, don't fight it. Don't reach for your phone. Just gently remind yourself, I hold the pen. The chapter is closed. I do not need a coward's permission to live my life. Sleep well. The ghost is gone.